Hey there, it's Reba from Team Reba, and putting a little video together today because of a conversation I was having with a client earlier about pre-inspections. So I've done lots of other videos about home inspections and why, as a buyer, why you would want to have one, whether it's a resale property or new construction. And then I've also had some videos where I'm talking to sellers about, why you want to let a buyer do an inspection because you want to reduce your liability about the property, right? Because you do a seller disclosure statement, but you may not remember everything. You may not even know everything about your house anymore, depending on how long you've lived in it, because there's places like crawl spaces and attics that we typically, the general consumer doesn't walk up into on a regular basis. But why would you allow a pre-inspection, right? So we've had a crazy market in Seattle between 2012 to 2018. That's where we're talking right now. Now, if you see this video in the future, pay attention to what's going on in the local market at that time. But we're going to go in and out of different real estate cycles, right? So right now, we're still kind of on the edge before things might start to soften. We've had 6 years of a lot of great appreciation. We've got a shortage of inventory like has never been seen in a super long time. And what's happened over the last few years is that when these competitive offers come in, sometimes what you're trying to do as a seller is to provide a buyer an opportunity to do an inspection ahead of placing their offer. And now what you're trying to also then do is let them do that, and then hopefully their offer won't have any inspection contingencies. Because we talk a lot in Team Reba about the idea that there's two main things that kill deals, and they are inspections and financing, right? Because they are where things fall apart, right? So if someone finds that something catastrophic on a house or a bunch of issues or things that are expenses they weren't expecting, and they need to look at what their budgeting is, what they're capable of taking on, that kind of stuff, that inspection might get somebody to either choose not to write an offer, or if they're in an offer, choose to get out of that contract. And the contingency aspect, when it's in contract, gives them the right to do so as long as they follow what their timelines are here in Washington State, right? So what's going on right now, though, or has been going on for the last couple of years, is some people are doing what's called a pre-inspection. Oftentimes just a verbal report, but it's still an inspector going in and doing all the exact same stuff they would do for a traditional inspection, just not necessarily doing a written report, and it's a reduced cost. If you get the house, usually you pay the difference. You get the report because the home inspectors are required to give a written report if you get the house, right? So in this situation, a client asked me, well, why would I want to do that? And it's because if they write their offer with the inspection contingency in it, now you've got a 50-50 chance on whether or not they're going to use that to either, one, try and renegotiate the price, or cancel. Because the way that the documents are written for Washington, now I'm not an attorney, but this is kind of generally how it works, they can cancel for subjective review of what those things were and decide whether they want to continue forward. And if you get somebody who's got a buyer's remorse, they don't have to tell you why they're canceling it exactly. They could just deem that it's not it. They could also decide, even though it's not a neighborhood review, they could decide they don't like the commute. They could find out the neighbor makes a lot of noise at night. It could be, they walked a particular distance and found out that that wasn't going to work for them for maybe the job that they were, trying to be nearby, or the school, or whatever it is. There's a ridiculous number of potentials that can happen with that. So I told this client today, I said, well, if we're trying to reduce the number of contingencies for you as a seller, it's generally to your benefit, because now we have one less issue that may come up. And it also then makes the earnest money potentially more secure to go to you versus the buyer if they cancel in a contingency where their timelines are still there and they have that protection. So it's kind of an important thing to understand the difference between pre-inspections and something done before offer versus during offer. Because at that point, remember, it wasn't that long ago that inspections really started. It's really about the 1980s, 1990s that one buyer agency came into being, and then inspections became more common. And even beyond that now, sewer scopes are becoming very commonplace. So this couple that was looking to buy this home and we look at offers, tomorrow. Of course, this will be dated as soon as I'm done with it. They did a sewer scope, and they're doing a regular scope, or excuse me, inspection. And, we're glad for that, because my client can also walk away feeling good that that buyer has already done their due diligence. Because prior to these things being commonplace, it was caveat emptor, let the buyer beware. So it's a good practice for both buyers and sellers to do this. I tend to get personally very nervous whenever I see a buyer just waive the inspection. If I'm the listing agent, I still feel nervous, because now there's that potential of a buyer later on going, oh, but wait, I didn't know and I didn't get this opportunity. And now you have to prove later on whether or not you did or did not give them the option of doing it, right? And so you don't certainly want to get into a situation where maybe there's a consideration of fraud or like withholding information or something. So kind of important. I'm putting this video out there for our buyers who are considering things. Really recommend you get your own, even if you accept a seller's inspection that they did ahead of time. Really recommend, even if you accept that, as you write your offer, get another one post-closing, just so you know things haven't changed since that happened. Because it happens. We've seen it. We know it's a real likelihood. And, and houses are like humans. Things change over time. Something might be fine one day, could break down a week later. You never know. So outside of that, if you're a seller, it's not necessarily a bad thing. In the forms that we use here in Washington State, there's a form called the 35P for pre-inspection. And in that, it is the buyer taking on the responsibility for the property while they're doing their inspection. That should something go wrong and they've broken something or whatever, they're supposed to be responsible for that. And we use those forms and we get people to sign off on that, so that we try and get some element of legal responsibility in place. The agent knows, the buyer knows, the seller can at least feel confident that someone ahead of being under contract knows what their responsibilities are in that case. And, because also things can go wrong in those situations too. I've seen it happen. Garage doors falling down, plumbing leak starts while they happen to be there. The dishwasher suddenly sprouts a leak. I mean, this stuff just happens, guys. I can't begin to tell you enough. And the more years I do this, the more that I just pile on the stories. Sometimes we have things that go very, very smoothly, but every transaction, every house, every client, every buyer and seller is just a little bit different. They're all coming from somewhere in a different place, different circumstances, different financial backgrounds, different care of things. So stuff just happens, and you just got to be prepared. But not a horrible thing to allow pre-inspection. You just have to weigh for yourself how comfortable you are with it. And then, talk to your real estate professional. Hopefully maybe that's us. And, make it work from there. So anyway, hope everyone has a great night. It's summer here. It's kind of hot. I know this will be on the internet forever, but, it's currently August of 2018. Market here is kind of quieted a little bit because we have more inventory than typical at this time, because everybody's trying to, sell in the summer. And I'm going to do a video about that later on. But anyway, that pre-inspection thing came up today, and I just really felt like I needed to make a video about it. So anyway, hope you're all doing great. See you soon.